Give me an experience when you said yes to something that you actually had no idea how you were going to execute, and then you were held over the fire by yourself to figure it out because you landed it.
I will say that like that has definitely been a common thing where I feel like, to kind of jump around for a second, but you know all about writing copy, and it's about connecting with those people. And I feel like this is one where I assume other people have felt this, where if you really want to lean to a pain point, it's that feeling of realizing that like 3 weeks has gone by and you had all this time and now you're down to like the final day and you just wish you could have that time back, and your face is numb with stress. And I've definitely experienced that so many times, and it's taught me the lesson of planning ahead. And I was just talking with that VFX supervisor actually from Justice League about this exact thing, that younger people tend to kind of just they're doing their own movie. They're not doing the movie that the director wants. And that tends to be a problem. You kind of go down a rabbit hole, and then at a certain point you realize like, oh crap, I'm out of time and I've got nothing to show for it, and you got to pull some miracles out of your butt. And if only I could have like a couple more days, like even 24 hours back. I've definitely had that a lot. That feeling is the worst feeling in the world, of just, I wish I could just have a little bit more time to get back to go down the right path, instead of having a plan in the first place and sticking to it. But there is one shot on Transformers that I worked on that I wasn't meant to work on. And I originally accepted Transformers only if I could have a few days off on my 28th birthday to fly to New York to celebrate my birthday. And I was always expecting them. This is Kevin and Ryan over at Atomic when they ran that studio that I mentioned earlier. So at the time, I always expected them to renege and be like, oh, we're sorry, we can't. And I was always blown away that even though we're down to like the final week of delivery of the film or close to it, they were like, okay, have fun. And it blew me away because I never expected them to actually hold me to it. And I expected to have to fight for it. But I do remember I was at Gordon Ramsay's restaurant, Maze, in Soho, I think. And I was eating there and I texted them. It was late at night, had a lot to drink. And I was like, how's it all going? And they're like, yeah, really good. When you land, can you come straight to the studio? And I'm like, uh-oh. So I remember coming in that morning. This is in San Francisco. And they basically, there's one shot that I wasn't doing that someone else had been working on for a month. And it just creatively wasn't hitting the right marks that our client wanted. And they told me like, we have 24 hours to deliver the shot. And if they don't like it, they're pulling the shot, which means they're going to lose like 50 grand. And this was something that someone else, like a very talented artist, had been working on for a long time. So I came in having to start the shot from scratch. And this is like a whole city being destroyed. And, you know, it's one of those fly through shots in Transformers 3 where they're on, like, they're gliding down from a plane. And that was one of those things where it was impossible to do what they're asking me to do. And I felt zero stress going in, because for me to finish this, again, this is planning. Like, for me to finish, I got to have my stuff done by 1 a.m. because it's going to take about 6 hours to simulate and render. And then Wei, who I mentioned also earlier on Flight, he's the comp supervisor. He was going to be waiting around at about 4 or 5 a.m. to start bringing in my elements. So we kind of like figured out our plan. And it meant that for me, like, I kind of just expected, like, you know, if I fail, I fail. Like, no one can hold this over me. And therefore, I'm just going to go in, I'm going to do the fucking best job I can. And hopefully it works. And if not, then there's nothing else I could have done. So I like that, just because it wasn't like, oh shit, what corner have I put myself into? It's just, do the best job you can and plan ahead so nothing can go wrong, and let's just pray that it works. So I remember going back to my hotel that night. I came back in the morning and I'm expecting them to be like, oh yeah, these suck, and it failed. But it was just like, it all looked great, because I hadn't even seen the stuff I'd done, but there's no time.
Because
you're literally hitting a button and generating all the stuff from scratch. So I'd never actually seen any of the stuff. And Michael Bay approved it on the spot. And
thank goodness.
So it was cool, because that was something where I was cornered with like, how the hell am I going to pull this off? But luckily it wasn't one where I'm like, shit, I'm so stressed and strung out. It was just like, have a plan, stick to it, and anticipate problems as they come up, and hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah, that's good advice. All right. That's a great story. I've had so many of those. I just am getting flashbacks of my own agency years of the crap hitting the fan, and I've got to figure out how to clean up the mess, and I have no time to do it. It's traumatic.